Helen, let's kick it off with you. What's going on with China's energy consumption, and how is that actually impacting the rest of the world?
Hi there. So China's energy consumption has surged recently, and that's essentially because its industrial activity has ramped up. And that's as it's emerged from the pandemic. China's really struggling to get enough energy. So coal, for example, it grew to record prices last year. It's paying sky-high prices for liquefied natural gas, and that's having a knock-on impact on the rest of the world. And it's exacerbating a supply crunch that we have in Europe already. So gas and power prices in Europe have just keep surging past record after record. And so, I mean, analysts are now expecting that it's going to be a pretty tricky winter for us, especially as inventory levels are so low. Analysts estimate that Europe's gas storage levels are at a decade low.
And then, of course, another knock-on effect are oil prices, the price of Brent hovering around $80 a barrel. Helen, OPEC Plus meets today. You've been staying on top of that story as well. How might the global gas crunch impact their policy when it comes to oil production?
So OPEC have up to this point indicated that they're likely to continue with their gradual measured increase approach. However, they are under now increasing pressure from the gas crunch, basically because analysts are expecting that demand for oil is likely to increase, basically as competition intensifies for other types of fuel, so coal and gas, for example. So obviously, if that happens, prices are likely to rise, and OPEC will be under continuing pressure to release further barrels in the market. The thing with that, though, is that the group is likely to be quite hesitant, or cautious, shall I say, in doing that, because they're not going to want to derail all the hard work that they've done in rebalancing the market.
Helen, let's also go to Maria, who's in Luxembourg for us. And Maria, good morning again to you. Just how big a concern is this for Europe, especially as energy demand picks up? Will we see further caps on prices?
Yes, Francine, and this is probably going to be the #1 issue when finance ministers meet here in Luxembourg for a number of reasons. Of course, as you alluded to there, we're seeing benchmark prices for both electricity and gas in Europe hit a record high pretty much on a daily basis. Finance ministers worried that this could derail and remove some of the momentum in the European economy, but they also think in terms of the inflation picture, whether that could feed into prices too on a bigger scale. And you know, there's already a big debate as to whether this is sticky or is just temporary. The other issue, as you also mentioned, Francine, is the social impact that a lot of this will have. We have seen European governments take actions to cap the prices when you look at the wholesale and the way it's translated into households. We know that today, in particular, the Spanish will put a proposal, a measure, so that European countries buy gas in bulk. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen anytime soon, but the sense that we get is that, yes, European governments are prepared to take more measures, and two, that they want to see collective buying in order to get some of the leverage power that some of these companies have on an individual basis and have a much bigger say in those transactions. So yes, it's still very much top of the agenda. You could see perhaps some of that tension between the companies and governments heat up as we enter the winter.
All right. So as you say, this is a political issue as well. We have policymakers taking action, especially in Spain. What about when it comes to the relationship of Russia? How is Europe going to approach this in terms of getting more energy flow in there? Has there been any conversation about that, or will there be, do you think, at this finance ministers meeting?
Well, you know, Danny, there are two things to the story, or two different narratives. One, of course, is that this is about the European economy picking up. This is demand. And then there's a supply issue. We know that Russia has been running a very tight ship on that front. And we know this is still a very political story for the European Union, in particular when you look at Germany, the Nord Stream, and Vladimir Putin. Now, this will, again, increase calls in Europe that there should be less dependency on Russia. And then secondly, also when you look at the green transition and how we switch from fossil fuels into the greener economy, there's also concerns that perhaps this is showing some of the limits to that transition, that this is a transition that A, costs money, but perhaps may need more time. So again, it feeds into two parts of the debate, whether or not we can hit those targets when it comes to the green, and then two, whether or not Europe should be diversifying, perhaps even going into nuclear when it comes to their energy mix, as you see the limitations of the current one.